Okay, we already, of course, discussed Say's law. Say's law, of course, states that supply creates on demand. So Say's law states that supply creates its own demand. Well, we're going to see whether Say's law holds in a barter economy. And later we're going to see whether Say's law holds in a money economy. So let's see first if Say's law holds in a barter economy. Does Say's law hold in a money economy? Now, to discuss this, let's consider a person producing chairs in a barter economy. A barter economy is an economy that is exchanging goods for other goods, or a moneyless economy. So let's say here it starts in a barter economy. We're going to start with a barter economy. That says the whole in a barter economy. Of course, a barter economy is a moneyless economy. Okay? In other words, in a barter economy, goods are exchanged for other goods. So in a barter economy, goods are exchanged for other goods. Now, to see whether Say's law holds in a barter economy or not, we're gonna consider this example. Say, for instance, a person, of course, working or producing chairs. A person, consider a person producing chairs in a barter economy. So, according to Say, John Baptiste said, this person works in his trade because he plans to demand other goods. Okay? So, according to Say, this person, I'm talking about the person who is making chairs, is in his trade because he plans to buy other goods and services. So, as he is supplying a chairs, as this person is supplying a chairs, then he is, of course, as he is supplying chairs, then this person, of course, is thinking about the goods and services he plans to obtain in exchange for the shares he is producing. So we can say here that according to say, this person is in his trade because he plans to buy other goods and services. Okay, so as he is producing shares, he is thinking to buy other goods and services. So his act of supplying is linked to his act of demand. Therefore, his act of supplying shares is linked to his act of demand. Therefore, supply creates on demand. This leads to supply creates it is on demand. Now, Say's law implies that if the act of supplying, shares is linked or leads to a simultaneous demand for other goods, then Say's law implies there could not be overproduction of goods and services, that is, higher supply over demand, and also there can't be, or there could not be, underproduction of goods and services, that is, more demand than supply. So therefore, here, if the act of supplying some good, in this case, shares, is, of course, leads to a simultaneous demand of other goods and services, then Say's law would imply that there could not be overproduction of goods and services, okay? When we say overproduction, if the act of supplying, it shares, of course, is linked to his demand for other goods, then, of course, if the act of supplying some goods, which is here in this case shares, leads to a simultaneous demand of other goods and services, then according to say, then there could not be overproduction of goods and services. Also, there could not be underproduction of goods and services. Okay, there could not be overproduction of goods and services. That is supply greater than demand. Here, quantity supplied greater than quantity demanded. And there can't be, and there could not be underproduction. Of goods and services, which means quantity demanded greater than quantity supplied. Okay? So this is actually what we mean by overproduction and underproduction. So overproduction of goods and services means that the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. That's why you have a surplus of goods and services. And then there could not be underproduction of goods and services. It means that there's a shortage, that is, the quantity demanded is much higher than the quantity supplied. So this is basically, now, as we can see, that the sales law is easily understood in a barter economy, as we show here. Okay, so in a barter economy, as you can see, sales law hold in a barter. And what we can say here, therefore here, sales law holds, of course, in a barter economy. Okay, now we're going to see whether sales law holds in a money economy. We have already discussed, that sales law is easily understood in a barter economy. We're going to see now whether sales law holds in a money economy. So let's see that. So the question is that, does sales law hold in a money economy? Well, of course, this person who is producing chairs in a money economy, over some period of time, he is making an income. So what does he do with his income? Of course, one use of his income is to buy goods and services. However, his demand for goods and services, does not necessarily, match his income that he makes or he generates from the supplying of chairs in this money economy. This person, of course, might spend, less money than the income he earns because he saves. So we might think that sales law does not, hold in a money economy, because the act of supplying, chairs need not create an equal amount of demand. However, the classical economists disagreed. They debated that even in a money economy where individuals, producers, persons, sometimes spend less than their full income, but sales law, even in a money economy, still holds. Of course, their argument, they argue that even in a money economy, where individuals sometimes spend less money than their full income, however, Say's law still holds. And their argument is partly based on the assumption of what? Of the interest rate flexibility. Okay, so here we say that, of course, Say's law still holds in a money economy of course, still holds in a money economy, even even though some individuals sometimes spend less than their full income. Of course, classical economists, they argue that, or their argument that Say's law still holds in a money economy, even though some individuals, sometimes spend less than their full income. Of course, because their argument is partly based, okay, their argument, the classical economist argument is partly based on the assumption of the interest rate flexibility. So, of course, as I said, even some individuals spend less than their full income. We might think that Say's law does not hold. However, the classical economists disagreed, and they say even though some individuals sometimes spend less money than their full income, Say's law still holds in the money economy, and their argument is, was basically based, partly on the assumption of course, interest rate flexibility. Okay. So now, of course, we're still, presenting, how Say's law hold in a money economy. Okay. Now, of course, we said that in a money, Say's law also holds in a money economy. Now, we're going to figure out this or illustrate this graphically. Now, for Say's law to hold in a money economy, funds saved must, trigger an equal amount of funds investment. So, now we're going to look at the classical economist and the position of the classical economist concerning the interest rate flexibility. Now let's look at the position of the classical economist concerning the interest rate flexibility. Now, for Say's law to hold, for sales law of market to hold any money economy then funds saved must trigger an equal amount of funds invested. If not, that is, if the money earned from supplying, the good, in our example, we presented in supplying chairs. The money earned from supplying shares is not used to demand, goods, then here we will experience an overproduction. It's therefore, then we can see that whether we can, doubt that sales law will hold. However, according to the classical economist, interest rate flexibility, will guarantee that saving is equal to investment. So according to classical economist, amount of saving is matched with amount of funds invested because of the interest rate flexibility. Therefore, classical economists argued or debated that funds saved must be matched with funds invested because of the interest rate flexibility. Let's see that graphically. Let us see that graphically. Let us see that graphically. By using the saving curve and the investment curve. Consider, the following. This is the interest rate. And this is saving investment. S denotes saving, and I denotes investment, and R denotes interest rate. Here interest rate. Okay, here interest okay, and here saving investment. Okay, of course, this is the investment here curve, and this is the saving curve. Okay, here you can see that S stands for saving, I stands for investment. Now, they intersect at E. Okay, at the interest rate R 0, and here where S0 is equal I0. Initial saving equal initial investment. Okay, point E. Now remember, now I, which stands for the investment, as you can see, is downward sloping. Okay, indicating an inverse relationship between the interest rate and the amount of investment. The higher the interest rate, the higher the cost of borrowing, and therefore the lower the amount of money borrowed, which means lower investment. The lower the interest rate, it means the higher the amount of money borrowed from banks, which implies the higher the amount of investment. Therefore, I is downward sloping, of course, which shows an inverse relationship between the level of interest or the interest rate and the amount of money invested. Okay? Now, okay, here, of course, I is downward sloping. Indicating an inverse relation between R and the amount investment. Of course, the reason why the investment is downward sloping is because that the interest rate, the higher the interest rate, the higher the cost of borrowing. Okay, the higher the interest rate, the higher the cost of borrowing, which implies the lower in the investment, and vice versa. Now, what about S? S is upward sloping. S stands for saving, is upward sloping, indicating a positive relationship between R and the amount of saving. Remember why the saving curve is upward sloping. It is upward sloping because, of course, the higher the interest rate, it means the higher the interest rate means the higher the reward given to savers. The higher the interest rate, the higher the opportunity cost of consumption. So the higher the opportunity cost of consumption, it means the lower the consumption. the lower the consumption, which means the higher the saving. So this is, something that we have to know. Therefore, the saving curve is upward sloping to indicate that the higher the interest rate, the higher the reward given to savers. And the higher the interest rate means the higher the opportunity cost of purchasing or consumption, which means the lower the consumption, of course, and the higher the saving. Okay? Great. Now, let's, now here, at point E, as you can see, saving is equal investment. Now, let's suppose that saving increases. Suppose saving increases. That is, it shifts to the right. Okay? According to the classical economists, an increase in saving, that is shifting of the saving curve to the right, will put downward pressure on the interest rate. Okay? The classical economist says that an increase in saving will put a downward pressure on the interest rate. Okay, we'll put a downward pressure on the interest rate. When the interest rate goes down, let's say S0 here, this I0, now increases, S1, okay? It will put a downward pressure on what? On the interest rate. So now it will, intersect the investment over here, and which implies that the interest rate goes down to R1. And according to the classical economists, the increase in saving will put a downward pressure on the interest rate, which implies here will cause investment to increase. The decrease in the interest rate will cause investors to invest more, therefore, and that implies more investment. Okay? So now what we see at point E, okay, we will get what? We'll get here S1 equal I1. So what we see here, that the interest rate flexibility means that the interest rate flexibility, according to the classical economics, will adjust, will cause the interest to adjust to equate saving with investment. So that implies here, so the interest rate flexibility will eventually cause investment to equal saving. So therefore, because of the interest rate flexibility, then we can say that Say's law holds in a money economy. Okay, for Say's law to hold in a money economy, the amount of funds saved must give or must trigger an equal amount of funds invested. And this will show that because of the interest rate flexibility, then we will see that, the amount of funds saved must equal or must be matched with an equal amount of funds invested. And that shows that, Say's law holds in a money economy, also it holds in a barter economy.